Hey, I'm Stephen Glosser.
And I'm Megan Pikert.
Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast,
a podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood.
A season that's marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions.
Join us for some real conversations as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life.
We're so glad you're here, and we'd love to have you join our little Going Somewhere podcast community. Follow us on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast and join the conversation.
We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together.
Thanks for listening. Let's jump into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. I am joined today by my co-host Megan. What's up, Megan?
Hey, how's it going?
You know, it could be better. I've got a little cold and, listeners, today you're probably going to hear me cough up a lung, but I'm fine. Don't call the cops. I'm good.
He's fine, hopefully.
Yeah, Megan will take care of it if anything bad happens, but no, it's just one of those things. It's that time of the year. Today it snowed for the first time in Fargo. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where you're listening from, but we got snow on the ground.
Yeah, and it's snowing right now. Roads are closing, and it looks bad out, actually.
Do you have to do anything with, snow removal, or is that taken care of?
Taken care of at my apartment, and we have underground parking if you want it, but I don't. I just rely on my remote start and hope for the best.
There you go. This is my first car I've had in a while my parents gave us a car, a while back, or they sold it to us and it had auto start. And then the van we got, that was a Christmas gift, was auto start. So this is my first vehicle that I haven't had auto start in a while. And I know that sounds very
first world problem.
Yeah, but living in Fargo, that is a problem.
It is, honestly. It's almost a necessity.
And I park outside. Mm-hmm. And so it's a challenge, but it's all right.
Yeah, we'll get through it.
I know. Everybody is like, stop playing your tiny violin.
Yeah.
But no, today we're going to continue the conversation about friendship. We talked about 3 keys to improving your friendships from the life of David. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go back, give it a listen. I know I have had some positive feedback from that, of just those practical things and just that biblical model of it. And so today we're going to kind of continue the friendship conversation, which is super exciting.
Yeah, we know community, everyone wants it, everyone needs it, and so it's something that we're all thinking about. So today we're going to be diving into long distance friends. So how do we navigate friendships within transitions or moving across the country, across the state, wherever you're going? But yeah, how has that looked like from you? You just had a long distance friend visit this past weekend. How was that?
Yeah, one of my best friends from my college season was Tony Meyer, who was my campus pastor, but also just a really close friend. We played softball together. I inherited his dog from him. And so we've stayed in touch, but we don't get to see each other more than maybe once a year max. And so, yeah, it was just so fun to be able to have him in our sphere again. And so it made me kind of, think about that, though. It made me kind of realize how grateful I am for Tony and what he means to my life. But even in the midst of a few days here, we didn't get any more than 10 minutes of just me and Tony time. And so I've just realized that there's a lot of room for us to kind of feel oh man, I wish this was different. I wish this, when he's back, he's not only seeing his family, but he has 20 plus years of friendships in this town and then 48 hours. So how do you spend that? And so just all those factors that go into these relationships that aren't in proximity like they used to be, it makes you wonder. And I just think from the young adult standpoint, it's one of those things that relationships change, and that could be the long distance. That's where we're going to kind of hone in on today. But when somebody gets married, the relationship changes. When job hours, and we have friends that are in medical fields and they're working night shifts and we're working day shifts, that changes. And so those things are hard to navigate. And I think we just want to give kind of a baseline of how do we navigate those as followers of Jesus? How do we, prioritize being like Jesus in those relationships, even though they change?
Yeah. Many of us want to have better friendships like we talked about a few weeks ago, but now we're going to get practical of how do we pursue the people in our lives? How do we be intentional and really navigate all the transitions with ourselves and with other friends that are going through transitions, whether that's someone getting married, like you said, or they get a new job, and how do you celebrate that when you don't live next to them anymore, and things like that. So we're going to jump into it with our first area of ways to just build our community.
Yeah. And before we do that, though, I think, too, I want our listeners to kind of think about those relationships right now, because I think this isn't just a theory of friendship. It's you are listening to this, and hopefully there's people that are popping into your minds. There is a friend that you knew from high school that is just not the same anymore. You have college roommates that are now scattered across the state or across the country, and what was nightly heart-to-heart connections is now months in between even conversations. And so think about those people as we're talking about this. I want you to actually think about, okay, how can I apply this to the relationships in my life, to that roommate, to that high school friend, to that mentor, that college friend that played a significant role in my life at a time. Like this, we don't want this to just be living out in the internet of yeah, Megan and Steven have had this, but I think every person listening today can think of a relationship that's changed. Maybe that you've embraced that change, or that change is a struggle for you. So that's the perspective I want you to listen with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Makes sense to me. Hopefully it makes sense to our listeners.
Yeah, they can't tell us.
Yeah. Well, we're going to dive in first talking about intentionality and how to be intentional in your friendships. And you went a little crazy when you moved to New Jersey, and borderline psychotic, I think. Okay. But what did you do when you moved to New Jersey? What happened?
Well, now we're taking it too far, but I'm just kidding. I did. So yeah, obviously my wife and I moved to New Jersey. I spent a decade in Fargo. A lot of significant things happened. A lot of significant relationships were formed. So we moved to New Jersey, and I was really intentional about, I want to stay connected with these people. For one, we did feel that we would maybe someday come back. Sorry. That we would someday come back to Fargo, but we just cared about so many people. So I made a spreadsheet. I know. I made this big spreadsheet of my friendships, and
color-coded.
I kind of tiered them to an extent, like family. I know that my brother and sister-in-law, everybody in that group, I need to maintain these relationships. And then my best friends, the people that I, got really close with. And then I just kind of said, okay, how often do I want to communicate with them? So I literally made a spreadsheet, and with date fields of when's the last time I called them? When's the last time I texted them? When's the last time I sent them a letter in the mail? And I really had the intentionality and the, motivation. I want to be intentional about staying in contact with all of these people. And so honestly, it was amazing. And I would recommend doing it 10 out of 10 times, because it allowed me to be way more intentional than I would have been if I didn't have a plan. So I think on the one hand, it was psychotic, and it was way over the top, and it was impossible to keep up because it was way too complicated. But on the other hand, I was really intentional about, okay, there are people in my life that I want to stay in touch with. So I think it's a both and there.
Yeah, you sent it to me at one point, and I made a copy of it and did it for my own friendships. And it lasted maybe 3 weeks, because I was like, I'm so overwhelmed on the fact that I'm not hitting my deadlines of when I should reach out to my friends. And I ended up, it just made me create a system that was unattainable. But what it did do was it helped me get everyone's addresses. It helped me get everyone's birthdays. And so I got important information that made it easier for me to keep in touch with my friends, even though maybe I couldn't keep up with the trying to reach out to them. Oh, I wanted to reach out every 2 weeks, once a month, things like that. It really did help, honestly.
Well, I think that's the key, though, is having something that gives you a plan of action. Having something that you go, okay, I think the thing everybody should do and can do is identify the people that they're trying to stay in touch with. And that list might be longer than it realistically can be. We only have capacity for X amount of relationships in our life. And that's just one of those limits we have to embrace in life that are hard. But making that list, and then how do I want to stay connected with these people? And if it's super elaborate, it might not work, but just having that on paper of going like, no, I know I want to keep in touch with these people, and a way to track that and make sure that in some way, shape, or form you're doing that, that's a major win. One of the things that came out of that especially for that season we were away was super fun, is that I tried to send birthday letters as often as I could. And I know I missed some close friends, but there was some people that I sent letters to in that season that allowed me to really be intentional about speaking into their life. And that the whole idea was, I don't want to just send a text on their birthday. It was, I want to actually take time to write out, hey, this is what you mean to me. I hope you have a great day. And just to let them know I'm thinking about them from where I was. And so that was something that even in the seasons where I haven't done it faithfully, it's in the back of my mind of like, man, that was really fun. It was a fun way for me to think about those people in a very thoughtful way, but also to connect with them and stay in touch in a unique way.
That's so good. As you're talking, it makes me think of, this is so random, but on the same respect of sending cards to people, my grandma sends cards for any reason. Like, she doesn't even need a reason, and you're getting a card. Shout out
grandmas.
Yes, shout out to Grandma Sharon. She's top tier.
Yeah, specifically Grandma Sharon, but also all grandmas.
Right, yes. But she sends a card no matter what. And she sends a card on like the first day of snowing. I don't know. Like, it's just crazy.
You're going to get a card in 2 business days.
You know, I might. And so, but there is a sense of being on the receiving end of, oh, I was thought of. Like, you thought of me, you're asking questions about my life, and it's more intentionality than like sending a quick text, you know? And so I can see how that would be really beneficial for your community and staying in touch with people from afar.
For sure. And I think that can also look like just scheduling things on your calendar just to send a text. Like, those reminders are helpful too, you know, to make it not just like a wishful thinking. And that's probably where I maybe failed a little bit, was like, I had this great system in place, but if I would have maybe been a little bit more intentional about getting a alert on my phone to say, text this person. But the other side of that too was that by being intentional, it kind of allowed me to have a better grip of like, man, this person, I'm sadder than I thought I would be that I haven't heard from them. Or I'm surprised at how we have gotten closer since I've been away, you know? And so it kind of just gave me a little bit more of a touch point on where those things were at. And so I think that was a big deal. I think the other thing that has helped too is just making plans, in the sense of like building anticipation, because that can be hard. Like, I have a friend, you know, Steve, who's in Alaska. I have friends that are in Florida. I have friends in Washington. I have friends in, you know, Missouri and Indiana, and people all over the country. And some of those are not nearly as close as we once were, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But the thing that's been awesome is when I can make plans with those people, that we can build anticipation. So it's like with Steve, it's forced us to have Christmas plans. You know, I'm trying to navigate my family, but if Steve's in town for 3 days over Christmas, I want to be in Fargo when he's in Fargo. So it's just been like, all right, we've got something to look forward to. Other things too, when we know we're on a road trip, it's like, who can we drive through and see on those road trips? When I lived in New Jersey, Steve and Aaron, we scheduled a trip, and it was like a year of planning where they were going to come and stay with us, and we were going to do 5 baseball stadiums in 5 days. The trip got canceled because of COVID, but we had it all planned out because we went through the intentionality. Steve and I have talked about 2026 like friend trip, and we're already talking about that now. So just making plans is a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I have a group chat that we try to get together once a year, and we already put it in the text group of, hey, are we going to Texas in May? Like, is that the plan? And it created anticipation and bubbled up all of our excitement to see each other again. And I think with making plans comes being an initiator and really being the one that invites. We all want to be invited. We all want to be included. We all want to be thought of. And so if we're the ones that say, okay, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to step up and text the friend that I want to hang out with or I haven't heard from in a while. I think a lot of times we just wait for the other person to reach out or don't want like think their life is too busy for us or whatever excuse we make. And I think there's just a lot of freedom in saying like, I'm going to initiate. I can do it. I am empowered to be a good friend and to reach out, check in how they're doing, and make the plan.
For sure. And I think too, with that, it's like one of the ways that you can do that as well is to build off of, memories too. So there's the making plans part, but then there's also like the day-to-day side of things of, um, when you see a picture of that friend, just stop and send the picture. And, it might be 6 months since you've been together, and just sending that picture and just saying, thinking of you, is a way to communicate love in a unique way. And I think at the core of friendship is love and like supporting people. And so, although it looks different from season to season, being able to just drop that, 10-second act of love is going to make a big difference in their day potentially. And it might even re-spark like a friendship that feels like it's drifting as well. So yeah, being an initiator, making plans, having unintentional plan, that's all part of being intentional in order to kind of maintain and build those relationships. What's kind of the second thing we can do?
So the second thing I think can be huge is managing your expectations. I was kind of joking with Steven earlier with you about, I feel like young adulthood is all just managing my expectations in every season, every area of my life, just managing my expectations, and then keep managing, keep realigning with what season am I in right now, what is doable versus what I want. And so what are ways that we can do that? How can we manage expectations with our friendships?
Yeah, I think the first thing with that is recognizing that, and I don't know where this came from, but there's friends for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. I think that's something to really take to heart. There's friends that are in your life for a reason, that they really came in, they made a big impact on your life in some way, shape, or form. You went through a low point and they were the ones that held you up. But then that relationship changes, or a season. During college, this person was one of my best friends. I lived with them for 3 years. We did everything together, and now it's changed. And then a friend for a lifetime. I think recognizing that friends for a lifetime, at least to the extent that they were in your life where that keeps getting stronger, is probably more rare than it's not. And I think that's what we're talking about, expectations, is being okay when a friend is a friend for a season, or when a friend is a friend for a reason, or when it's not reciprocated. You're going out of your way, especially, and this is something with this too, if you're the one that moves away, you can deal with hurt more. And we're going to talk about that again too, because you can deal with, well, my life is kind of stopped. It's stalled. Like, I'm at square zero. I don't have a close friend group yet. I haven't found a church yet. The reality is those friends that you had in that previous place or setting, life is moving on like normal. And it's not because they don't like you or because you weren't somebody that was meaningful to them. It's just their situation hasn't altered the way that yours has. And so it's managing those expectations too, of like, I'm moving away and this is going to be hard and these are going to change. That friend that was there for me isn't physically going to be there for me. So I think that's a big part of that.
Yeah. And I think it can be really easy to kind of spiral in that mindset of, man, there's just no one reaches out to me anymore, or my life has changed, or everything looks different, everything's new, everything's a transition. But one way that I think we can really combat that is to be rooted in gratitude, be thankful for the friends that you do have and the impact that they've had in your life in all stages. And so whether that's just taking time to sit down and write out your close friends and the people that have had impacts on your life and just thanking them, or sending them a text and thanking them for the impact that they've had in your life, or even that's just keeping that personal to yourself too, and just reminding yourself of the ways that you've had incredible people be involved in your life, and be excited that you'll have more people that will continue to have an impact, that you'll be grateful that you met in this season that you're in right now too.
Right. And I think, I know we make a lot of promises when seasons change. And so it's like your friend moves and you're like, I'm going to come visit you every 6 months. And we say things that we should have never said because it's not the reality. I mean, unless you can book the tickets and make it happen immediately and it's, reasonable, just don't say it, because I think that's part of it too, is sometimes we put our expectations at a level they should have never been. Like when Steve moved to Alaska, that was maybe easier to embrace, but it's like, no, he's a 6-hour flight. It's several $100s away. This is just not going to be the same anymore. Like this is drastically going to change from us being able to do anything at any time. And same with even in the more like localized, like the friend gets married. The reality is that they now have a primary relationship that is beyond you, that you are no longer able to prioritize, or you're not the priority to them anymore. And there can be hurt there, but when we can just manage that expectation and just realize like that is the case. And then, like you said, be grateful. And I love what you said, to make a list of those friends, and especially those as you're kind of identifying like, man, I thought we would remain closer than we are. And I can think of a few of those. And then when I do the second part, I go, okay, well, what has that friend meant to me? And what have they contributed to my life? And I'll just think of one of who, I was really close with for probably 4 years. That relationship's changed a lot. We maybe talk to each other via text once a year, but that person spoke life into me at key times. They gave me opportunities when I needed them. They introduced me to other people that have allowed me to build other friendships. And so I just think of those types of things. And I'm like, man, I'm really grateful that person was in my life for that season. And whether it's a reason or a season doesn't really matter, because like, I just know that God used that relationship in my life. And I know that I've been on the other end of that too.
Hey everybody, we want to tell you about something really exciting happening here in Fargo, North Dakota. We've got Rhythm Conference 2025 coming up February 7th and 8th. And this is a 2-day gathering that is totally designed for you, young adults. This is an opportunity for you to make some friends, to grow in your relationship with God, and really be stretched as we make a difference in this world.
Yeah, we are so excited for all of us to be able to gather together in community, spend time with Jesus, and with our after parties, breakouts, guest speaker, Pastor Kirk Graham from River Valley Church. It's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah, we'd love to have you join us. We've got a seat saved for you. All you got to do is go to rhythmconf.com to reserve your seat, to register today. Price is only $50 for the whole weekend. You get everything. You get a meal. It's going to be an awesome time. But the price goes up December 31st, so get your tickets while they're hot. We'll see you at Rhythm Conf 2025.
What are some like examples for you that you've had to manage expectations?
Oh man, so many times. Again, like managing expectations and then remanaging them is a constant. I think when I first moved to Indiana, I was convinced that life would just keep going the way it was. Everyone I was close with in Fargo, I would still be just as close with, like we talked about. And I remember that season, those first couple months of transition was super hard. I was trying to find a church. I literally knew no one. Like there wasn't anyone I could call if anything happened. Like there wasn't anything. And so, but something that really helped was getting vulnerable with my friends back home when I came to visit over like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and just sitting them down and be like, I am struggling. I'm having a hard time. I have put expectations on you of I wanted you to reach out more. And also I haven't reached out because I've been hurt that I feel like you don't want to talk to me. And so there was just like this vulnerability and healthy communication that came out of that, because my expectations were different than what I could have done or what actually was the reality that we both had capacity for. And so I think along with the managing expectations is then communicating with your friends when there is hurt or there is, I feel like we're doing this really well, or you want to change it, even if it's like, hey, we're doing this okay, but this could be a lot better. That happened to one of my friends, and we're like, can we just be more intentional? Like, can we call every couple weeks or something instead of going months? And so, communicating expectations really changed the game for me in a lot of ways on how I was able to chill out on my expectations.
Yeah. I have a friend who, we were roommates. We were really close in college, and I still would consider him close, but I'm like, our seasons, whether it's kids or, all those things have just made it change drastically. And it's been him communicating his expectations to me. And on some ends that's been like, hey, I can't be that anymore. Like I can't do that anymore but this is what I can do. And honestly, even those conversations have been really beneficial. And because it's made the times we are together that much sweeter. It's something that it's fun to like surprise and be spontaneous and be like, hey, yeah, I'm just going to call him. But I don't get invited to all the things that I used to with that friend group anymore because of those expectations conversations. And that's totally okay. Mm-hmm. And that's a part of this that we have to just recognize, like, that's what we're talking about. Those changes do take place. The drift will take place. But managing that, communicating that is where we find that we can be loving still. Again, it all comes back to that. We don't want to ghost people. We don't want to be in a situation where we've hurt somebody and we don't recognize it. We don't apologize. We don't try to make things right. And I think that's where it's like, no, the loving thing to do is say, I can't be who you want me to be, or to embrace that when they say that to us of like, I don't think that's realistic to have that as our way that we connect anymore. And I think by managing expectations, it's allowed me to just keep people in the rightful place, that when I see them, it gives me a lot of joy. I don't have a lot of friends that I'm like holding my breath if I see them, because I'm like, oh no, I haven't been around much, because I've had the conversations. And I've been in that season in the past though, where I see somebody, they were a good friend in my life, and I remember being at Target, seeing them from across and literally ducking into an aisle. And I was like, why am I doing this? And when I thought about it, it was because I was not living up to the expectations that we had communicated, or to what we had set out, the unwritten expectations. And in that same way, I've had the hard conversations and managed those expectations. And when I see them, it's like joy, and it's happiness. And it's like, oh man, it's so good to see you. And I think that's probably the difference right there. It's just the fact that when it's unmet or unmanaged expectations, you're never going to meet them, and you're going to feel disappointment. You're going to feel, envy when you see them doing something, or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. I'm like getting a mental image of you ducking in Target, just like hiding.
Yeah, those are like the behaviors that if I ever find myself doing anything like that, or avoiding a phone call, or, it's like, okay, I got to check something out here. And so I think that's beyond just this conversation, but those heart checks sometimes are good ones for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just being convicted in the aisles of Target. But
oh yeah.
Yeah, super good. So also along with that, being intentional and managing your expectations, there's also a part of transitions that we just wanted to speak to about being where your feet are as well. And we'll talk more in depth about it too, but I think a lot of times it's really easy to either live in the past of where you've been and like hold on as tight as you can to the people that maybe your lives have just drifted. You're in very different seasons, or just constantly be focused on the future of, I don't want to build on where I am right now because I'm not going to be here for long. And I think I've been in both of those at times. And so how can we just be where our feet are, and why is that important as just an overall sense, but also within community? What does it mean to do that?
We need those face-to-face relationships. If anything, from COVID and from the last 10 years of technological advancements, the science shows that a big gap is the lack of face-to-face real relationship. It's relying on technology, communication methods other than that face-to-face that is actually diminishing our relationships. And we're designed to have those core, deep felt relationships where we can be in the same room, where we can hug each other, where it's even just that the face-to-face, like seeing the smile and all those things that our bodies are needing. And so I think that that's a part of that. And so like, although those people have been that in the past, they can't be that. And so it's actually unfair to expect them to be that. And so I'm not saying like, again, I feel like I need to give a disclaimer, but I shouldn't. But like, I have long distance friendships that are really strong. Megan, you and I have actually talked about this. Some of what I would claim to be my very best friends in the world don't live here, mm-hmm. because of what we've shared together, because of how our hearts are aligned and our callings are linked up and we're doing those things in different places. And so there's only a few people that I resonate with at the deepest level, and most of them don't live here. And at the same time, though, like I have made it a deep effort to prioritize the relationships that are here, because I need that, they need that, and that's where God has me. And so just being faithful to the stage, the season, the place that God has you in is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. I feel like there was maybe like 9 months to a year of my life when I moved back here where I was like, I have community. I have the best friends in the world. But they all live across the country, Florida, Omaha, wherever. And
that was part of your job. Like you guys, like that was the nature of it.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So those friendships were built long distance anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just knew how to do it really well and knew how to pursue friendships with each other. But it was really hard to transition and be where my feet are, like we're talking about, because I was like, I have the best community ever. Like, I don't need other people. I have people that I'm vulnerable with, that check me, that keep me accountable. But it got to a point where I was like, okay, but I'm still lonely. Like at the end of the day, I don't have anyone to go hang out with or to go grocery shopping with, to just do basic life with. And so there is a sense of there's a balance of pursuing really intentionally the people that maybe aren't where you are right now, but also there is this desire to be doing everyday life together with people in the season that you're in. And it's okay to grieve that your friends aren't with you in this season right now, and to be sad and to feel all of your feelings, like that's okay. But also creating space for new friendships, like you had mentioned earlier, of just sometimes we just got to remember that the friends we have right now were once new, and were once you were just getting to know them. You went and hung out for the first time. You met each other for the first time, whatever that looked like. And so there is a sense of grieving what you have and what you had, but also this excitement of you're only going to meet more people. Like you're only going to get to know more people in every season of your life.
I really think I've had like 3 stages of grieving relationships. And or like I've grieved my high school relationships that I still stay in touch with a few of those friends, but there was a lot more that those first semesters of college, it was like, those that were in Fargo, we were hanging out. We would drive back to Bismarck together. We would, try to spend our summers together and all that stuff. But those all changed, and they moved on and did new things. And my life just changed significantly, where we didn't share the same values, the same desires, the same lifestyle anymore. Then I had like my college friendships that kind of started to scatter, and life happened and people moved. And then as a minister too, it was another one of those things too, of like I had students that I would get really close to that would move. And then we moved, so 4, and then we moved back, so 5. So this has just been like a natural part of the last 10 years of our life, is recognizing that we get really close to people and then we grieve them. And then there's a lot that we stay close with. And I'm not saying I've grieved every relationship that's ended or that's changed, but there's a level of it that Steve moving across the country was grief. It was this person who I know was a phone call away, in the sense of like we could be together in the same room. He could pray over me. We'd see each other at church on Sunday. That no longer is going to be the case. But it's okay to grieve. But there's been other people, not to replace Steve, but to replace that role that Steve carried at a certain time in my life. There's been that other person, that the hand on my shoulder at church, when I've got my head bowed for prayer or whatever. That was what Steve would do. But now this person does it, and I cherish that. And God's using that person in my life in that way. So I think it's being where our feet are. When we moved to New Jersey, I had that spreadsheet. I was ready to, not just maintain friendships. I was ready to like become best friends with people that I lived 25 hours away from. But the reality was that they couldn't be what I thought they could be anymore, just because Brad had played that significant role in my life for so long. I couldn't get a hug from him when I was bummed out. And so it took time, but it really opened our eyes to seeing like how faithful God is. We had unexpected friendships. Our next door neighbors, became some of our closest friends, and they're way older than us. When we went to visit last year, that's who we hung out with. And one of the people that we worked with, like kind of peripherally, we stayed at their house. And those relationships are so meaningful to us now. And if we would have never leaned into those, I think we would have been really not only sad in that season, but now we have friends in that particular place that we would have never had if we wouldn't have leaned into that. And I think I've known people that have moved places, and the only thing they've done is like stayed in touch with old friends, and they've treated their place like temporary. And I just think that's a sad way to live. I think even if you know it's temporary, those relationships from that season are just as meaningful as any other season in my life. And I'm very grateful for them. They've contributed to my life in a variety of ways, whether it's mentorship in this season of pastoring or, sharing in memories of golf and all those different things. Like the friends I golfed with out there, we all share our scores on our golf app, and we're able to stay in touch that way. And they just mean a significant amount. So being where you are can't be overlooked in this.
That's really good. As you were talking, just that end right there of like, it can be really sad to live in a season and think it's temporary and live like it's temporary. And that's part of my story. Is when I moved to Indiana, I wasn't planning on staying there. I was either going to move somewhere else.
It was a 1-year job.
It was a 1-year job, and I lived like it was temporary. I didn't get plugged into my church right away. I didn't invest in my roommates as much as I like to, and it causes a lot of maybe regret to look back on that. But as we know, regret's not bad. And so, but it is sad to think about like, oh, the friendships that could have formed, but I was so convinced that my season was temporary, that I was going to do something different. I was holding on tight to friendships that I had outgrown or outmoved, and just held on to other things and was not intentional about being where my feet were. And because of that, like we said, regret's not bad. It makes me live different now. And so even moving back to Fargo, thinking it was maybe more permanent, but not really knowing, and changing the outlook of how I was viewing it of, no, I'm going all in for this now because I didn't then, and I want to, and I don't want to have regrets. I don't want to live my life in like limbo and not engage with my life and the people in my life as well. So
and I think there's a lot of joy too in introducing your new friends to your old friends, and I think that can be a sad thing, which we're going to talk about. But I just think of like the movie Inside Out. She moved to California, and then her Minnesota friend like had other friends, like shocker, but at the same time, like you see inside her mind the sadness that happened, and Friendship Island starts to disintegrate and all of those things. But at the same time, one of the fun things is, whether it was when people would visit us in New Jersey and we were able to introduce them to our new friends. It was just fun to like worlds colliding and those relationships colliding, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that is fun. How would you, or what advice would you have for how do you be where your feet are? Like practically speaking, for someone that's in a transition season or moved or whatever, how would you go about doing that? How would you find friends and invest in what you're doing right now?
Yeah, that could be a whole other episode. But I do think that it's like, one, where are you most commonly at? So if that's a workplace, and again, that expectations thing, like, is there a person that you can lean into? And we talked about it in the episode a couple weeks ago, but going out of your way to actually saying like, hey, can I be your friend? Or can we get lunch? Maybe don't go as hard as like, can I be your friend? But like, hey, would you ever want to get dinner after work some night? Or would you want to, I heard about this movie, would you want to go to this with me? And just making those plans with that person. Church is another big one. Like lean into a local church. Don't just go in and go out. Go and search out, like, do you have a young adult ministry? Are there small groups? And it could be, you could be surprised because intergenerational relationships can surprise you at how timely and amazing those can be. So they might not look the way that you think they are, but I think really leaning into like making it a goal over the first month of being in a transition of like, I'm going to connect with, if I set out the net and I'd make effort with 4 different people, the odds of one of those being somebody that kind of becomes deepening, it takes time though. Think of your closest friends. Most of them, it wasn't overnight. You had a lot of shared experiences. There's less shared experiences in young adulthood when you're out of college. There's less opportunities because you were at work and you are at these different places that you just don't have. In our college setting, there's retreats and there was all of this space where you were like, 4-hour long events, and you just really easily could cultivate that. Give yourself grace to let those relationships form over time, but really seek out those 1 or 2, and then have those people at home be your support system in the meantime, and just being like, hey, can you pray for me to find a friend? That you're giving them updates and you're saying, hey, I met this person at work, be praying, I asked them to dinner tonight, and I'm just hoping that we can connect in some way, and having them include them in that new season of your life is really fun too. Mm-hmm. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, that was good. I think a huge part of that can happen, which we were talking to this before we started recording, was just like comparison within your friendships. And something that you just brought up was the idea of you don't have as many shared experiences with people in young adulthood. And I remember feeling that of, why am I not invited to these things? Or like, why am I not in the group? Like, I feel like I'm right on the outside. And I was just reflecting on it and thinking, oh, well, they have 4 years of experience being together, going through life together. So that makes sense. I'm just starting my 4 years with them. And so giving yourself grace, which is our last point of what we're going to talk about today, but giving yourself grace in the sense of it's not going to happen overnight. Like you said, it's going to take time, and it's going to be worth the investment that you put into it as well.
Yeah. I think give yourself grace also is when you miss your friends, when you are struggling with the distance, when you see them move on, per se, that you look at their Instagram and you see that they had a girls trip, and that's the type of stuff you used to do. Like, give yourself grace to feel sad. Like, I think that's okay, but give yourself grace in being in that place where you're making new friends. Give yourself grace when you are missing your friends, but also give others grace and extend that grace to others. So extending that grace to the people in your new community that don't see you. Their life is so, like, their rhythm has not been disrupted at all. Yours has just gone upside down. It's just gone flipped upside down, where their rhythm, what they do on Tuesday nights, what they do on Thursday nights, is pretty set in stone. And so just because they don't notice you or notice your need doesn't mean that they're not a potential person that can be a huge role in your life. But also giving grace to those friends that you're away from. So whether they moved away or you moved away, I'm just thinking of those friends right now, like celebrating that their life moves on, giving them grace to recognize, like, man, yeah, I had friends that I had in Fargo here that I would find out about big things in their life on Instagram well after it happened. Maybe even though some of those people are the people, or here's another one. I have been, or I've had people, in my wedding or a big part of a big day like that I'm not invited to it, or I'm not in it the way that I thought I would be. Give them grace, because they've had relationships that are outside of yours, and it's okay. And I think that's just a big thing of friendship in general, is when we start to kind of expect trade-offs and stuff, like, that's not true love. Like, that's not true friendship. That's not unconditional. It's reciprocal. And so sometimes with long distance friends, especially when that big things happen, for instance, I had a friend who the first 2 pregnancies, we were on that first call, like before it was 12 weeks, like, hey, don't tell anybody. And it was like, oh man, that's awesome. It's fun to be on the inside. And then the one time I literally saw a post and it was, please welcome so-and-so to the world. And it was their baby in existence. And I was like, oh yeah, that's crazy. It's changed. Our relationship's not the same, but I'm not mad at them. I'm not holding that against them. I'm not going to let that be a tool of division or unforgiveness or bitterness in my heart. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think a lesson that I have been learning for a long time now, and I feel like I'll learn the rest of my life, is just having an unoffendable spirit and being unoffended, and it's a choice to be offended, and so adding to this lesson of replacing that with grace for people of I can be hurt that I was left out or I wasn't included or I didn't know, or I can say I'm going to cover you in grace and I'm just going to celebrate you and I'm going to be so excited for the season that you're in. I think that there is something very kingdom minded that happens when we choose to celebrate in spite of being hurt or in spite of comparison or wanting something differently, or maybe it's you wanted it for yourself and someone else is living in the story that you thought would be yours. And I think that there's just something new that happens within your walk with the Lord, within your community and your friendships, when we choose to celebrate in spite of, and we choose to extend grace and to believe the best about them and what the Lord's doing in their life as well.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Again, it all comes back to that main point of loving people and just being available to love them, being a supportive person. And so, we commit it. I've heard it said in many ways, but it's hard to hate somebody you pray for. It's hard to, have unforgiveness exist in a relationship that you're praying for. And so when we can commit those people to pray, to praying for them, when we can commit to recognizing the good things in their life and checking our own pride, checking our own envy or whatever it is, and dealing with that with the Lord, but also like releasing them and not expecting, again, when that relationship that you thought was going to be like close for a lifetime becomes a seasonal friendship, give yourself and them grace to recognize that that's okay, and again, it goes back to all the other points. There's times that when that happens, that's the number one cue to say, I need to reach out and I need to be intentional and I need to communicate expectations. I need to go down the list and say, hey, I don't know about you, but I'm not okay with this. And that's okay too. But we'll never be able to get to that point if we can't communicate those things and actually embrace what we're feeling. So we're going to recap kind of these long distance changing relationships, the 4 things that we want to encourage you to do. The first is be intentional. Make a plan. Find a way to stay in touch with them. Find a way to, reach out to them, to show that you love them, to make plans for the next time you see them. That goes a long way. The second is manage your expectations and keep managing them. There's friends for a season, friends for a reason, friends for a lifetime. Those expectations will make or break your relational happiness. Third is be where your feet are. Prioritize the people that are around you. Make effort to make new friends. Make effort to create space in your life. And then finally, give yourself and give others grace. Anything you want to add in conclusion, Megan?
That was good. You tied a nice little bow on it. I feel good. About it. I feel excited to get to be intentional with my long distance friends, as well as just invest and keep being where my feet are in this season too.
Yeah. And for you listeners, I just want you to take some time to think about it. Think about those relationships right now, and whether that's making a list of people that don't live near you and you want to stay in connection with them and in relationship with them. Just start to take those intentional steps. Maybe it's going to be giving some phone calls. Maybe it's starting a habit of writing birthday letters, or even just sending birthday texts, and just finding those ways to connect with them. But hopefully there's something that you're walking away with. We'd love to hear about it. So whether you comment on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast, or you can go over to the website goingsomewherepod.com. We'd love to hear from you, what you're feeling from this episode, what you're doing in this episode. But we're going to send it off here, and we're so glad that you listen. We'd love for you to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure that you leave a review wherever you listen to the podcast. That's how more people listen to it. And follow us on Instagram so you can stay in the loop on everything Going Somewhere Podcast. Thanks for listening.